Hi, I'm Tim. Join me in this video as I go through the construction and test flight of Sig's kit of the Deperdussin RC model airplane. Let's get to it. In the early days of full-scale airplane flight, starting about 1908, the Europeans really led the way with the design, test flying of various aircraft. The French company Deperdussin had a very successful line of monoplanes starting about 1910. They made several variants, and it really led the way for a lot of aircraft production at the time. The Deperdussin has surprisingly modern outlines with the engine up front, the tail surfaces of the wings. It just was a well laid out airplane, and they performed very well. They were popular at the time. The guiding principle or the limitation for all these early aircraft are engines. They just didn't have practical, lightweight, powerful engines. The Deperdussin, therefore, is a smaller airplane, about a 24-foot wingspan. Cessna 172 has a 34-foot wingspan. They were lightweight, weighed under 800 pounds. The early engines had 35 horsepower. And the top speed of these aircraft were about 50 miles an hour. But they were good-looking airplanes, and I always thought that they would make a suitable RC model airplane candidate to build, and I was looking forward someday to being able to build the Deperdussin from a kit. Well, it turns out the Sig Manufacturing Company does have a series of 3 kits they call the Pioneers of Flight. They are the Antoinette, the Demoiselle, and the Deperdussin. Interestingly enough, all 3 French aircraft of the pre-World War I era. These are extremely well-designed kits of very unique aircraft, especially the Demoiselle. There's extensive illustrated illustrated build manuals for these aircraft, and they're designed around the year 2000 or so, I think, back when indoor RC flight was just beginning. Microelectronics were just starting to be common. They were designed for brushed motors, geared brushed motors with NiCad batteries. It was the very early days of flight, indoor flight, where weight was absolutely paramount, but they're extremely well-designed kits. So what I'd like to do now is take a quick look at the Sig website to see how you can get one of these kits if you want to. Then we'll take a look at the building manual for the Deperdussin kit, which we'll cover later on in this video. This is the Sig website. It's a well-designed website with all the kits. You can see the Pioneers of Flight, the Antoinette, the Demoiselle, and the Deperdussin. So we'll click on the Deperdussin, and it's a good rundown of what's in the kit, specifics, details. It's a very complete kit. Everything you need is in there with the laser cut wood. It's just a well-done job on the kit. As we get down here, you can see that you can download the builder's manual, and the builder's manual gives insight to how seriously they take these kits. And we've already done the download, and we'll take a look at that in the tab right now. So this comes with the kit in paper, and it's kind of nice. You have a history of the Deperdussin, the airplane, its historical significance. Good to have some background on what you're building. And then it gets into a very detailed list of the electric power supply and the weight. This is back in the days of NiCad batteries and brushed geared motors. You don't have to worry as much with lipos and brushless motors. You'll have plenty of power. It goes into the paint options, complete list of parts. Here are the laser sheets of the various parts to keep track of the materials. And then it goes into the build itself. It's not a complicated build, but I'll call it involved. You just need to understand and follow their process to have a successful outcome building these unique models. So back in 2005, this video is being filmed in 2022. Back in 2005, I actually built the Sig Demoiselle. I just saw it. It looked great. We had a good indoor flying facility where I was living in Chicago when I put it together. And the airplane flew great. So let's take a quick look at some pictures of this model that I built going together. And you just see the unique construction plan for this, all very carefully spelled out in the builder's manual. This is the Demoiselle fuselage. It's being built directly over the plans. You see everything's listed, bottom frame plan. Again, it's such a unique construction. You just have to do what they say with the wing alignment tubes, the motor mounts, a bunch of things that are unique to this airplane. These are recommended brushed motor with a gear that came from Sig. This is really before LiPos. For these smaller models, this is the NiCad battery, important for center of gravity. Here's a rear view of the airplane. You can see the open structure, and I do have a video on this, link in the description. Now let's take a look at flight video of this. I apologize for the video. The video is shot probably about 2006, 2007. The iPhone was not even invented at this point, so everybody used camcorders. The video was shaky at best when you're indoor with poor lighting. But you'll see that the Demoiselle actually flew very well. It was a specific type of flying. It was very steady. It had an all-moving tail, which provided good control. And it was such a high drag airplane, and the Sig manual was very careful on this. If you pulled the power back to idle and tried to lower the nose to glide in, it just was too much drag. It just plopped down. You had to keep the power on for landing. But it flew very well. So let's take a look at the flight video. And this is the Demoiselle in flight in our indoor flying facility. Just very comfortable with that all-moving tail to turn it around. No ailerons with a dihedral. It just keeps itself level. A good flying model. I just really enjoyed it. It was an enjoyable plane to build and to fly. So it was inspired by the construction techniques of the Demoiselle, especially the wing. They used 1/4 inch balsa dowels as the spars. The ribs were glued directly onto these spars. They inserted into tubes of the fuselage. It was a very unique way to make a lightweight indoor model. So I adapted this construction technique, designed my own version of the Blackburn Type D monoplane. Drew up a set of plans, actually had it published in Quiet and Electric Flight magazine, a popular magazine at the time from the UK. The plane flew great. It just absolutely flew great. It was positive control. It was just a lot of fun to fly. 3 channels, rudder, elevator, and throttle. Let's take a look at the flight. It's on a pretty windy day. You'll see the plane bounce around a little bit, but that's okay. I was trying to keep it slow, close into the camera. It was under full control under the whole time, and just a landing practically straight down, going into the headwind. Again, this is my design of the Blackburn Type D monoplane. I do have a video on the Blackburn with plans. I'll link in the description. Here we are, a fairly windy day at the field. The thing just takes off immediately. Just got lightweight, plenty of wing area. It's bounced around a little bit in the wind. I'm just trying to maneuver it towards the camera for the video. The key thing is it's under full control the whole time. The plane looks great, very realistic, 3 channels with the throttle, elevator, and rudder. Very similar setup to what I will have for the Deperdussin. And you can see the landing into the wind. It basically hovers and pretty much just lands in place. So I always had a desire to build a Deperdussin from this Pioneers of Flight kit line from Sig. A bunch of things happened with work, etc. So finally moved to Georgia back in 2015. Had some time, and so I decided to purchase the Deperdussin and put it together. This was before I started my YouTube channel, so I don't have the detailed building pictures and videos of it. But I do have some pictures of the plane under construction, out of the test flight at the field. So let's go through those pictures. We'll go through out at the field, and I'll talk you through the test flight of my build of the Sig Deperdussin RC model airplane kit. This is a detail of the wing. The spars are the leading and trailing edge with the wing ribs between these 2 spars. Very easy engine mount. It's a Park 250 motor with a battery cover just above it. There are the K-bond struts in place, a very easy installation for the struts. I use silver beading wire that I got at Walmart with crimp tubes. Easy way to put on the wires for this airplane. little hooks with a music wire. This is a K-bind strut to the top of the wing, and a front view of the airplane with the reinforcing wires in place. The Deperdussin is a good-looking kit. I mean, here's everything in place, but as you will see, it's not a strong airplane. There's no music wire in the landing gear. It can't take a lot of abuse, especially with outdoor flying. Now, one thing about this, it was a tight fit into the car. Luckily, it fit in. The wingspan was okay, but I got lucky on the fuselage because I had to open that little compartment for the rudder for everything to fit into the car trunk at the RC field. But we made it, and everything's in place for the first flight. The plane is on the bench. Go ahead, we'll install the battery and do some pre-flight checks and make sure that everything's working okay. I elected just a simple hatch with a rubber band to keep the cover on the front part of the airplane. Now the battery's in place, we'll go ahead and do some control checks. There's the elevator and the rudder, plenty of movement there in the proper direction, and the throttle. So now it's time for the test flight. Good day, good weather, we apply power, I'm wanting to turn left, I'm adding left rudder, and for whatever reason the plane goes to the right. I don't fully understand why. We'll take another look at it. Plenty of power. And again, what I should have done when this plane wasn't behaving properly, just reduce the power and land straight ahead. So you saw the test flight. It crashed on its first flight. It just would not turn. I planned to do a left turn out of traffic. I had left rudder in. The controls checked positive before the takeoff with the elevator and rudder. There was tons of elevator, tons of rudder on this model. And you could see it kind of skidded a little bit to the right. I just couldn't figure out what was going on. So looking at the video, thinking about it, there's no case of adverse yaw because the airplane doesn't have any ailerons. You have to have ailerons for adverse yaw on an airplane. The rudder is typically the last control that you lose in an airplane that's going down. The rudder should have worked the whole time. It didn't. I can't explain that. Also, the full-size Deperdussin used wing warping for the ailerons. Would ailerons have helped on a model like this? I think probably. There's never a reason not to put on ailerons. In a situation like this where you can't turn the airplane, to have the backup of ailerons, even though they would not be scale ailerons on this particular model, would be a strong consideration. Also, the wing was fairly a weak construction by the nature of the dowels and all that stuff. There could have been some warping in the wings after the actual takeoff that I just wasn't aware of that caused this to behave badly. I just don't know. The other takeaway on this is during the takeoff, it becomes evident right off the bat that I'm having problems turning. The best thing to do is slowly reduce the throttle and just land straight ahead. Instead of continued flying, continued trying to turn. It's a fragile model. When it landed, it balled up the nose pretty bad, and that was the final flight. I elected not to repair it because it was going to be too fragile. This is going to happen again. So I enjoyed building the kit. I truly thought that airplane was going to fly. It just seemed like such a logical thing from my Demoiselle to the Blackburn to the Deperdussin. You look at some models, you say this model's going to fly well. It didn't. And so this happened, and like I said, probably a good lesson learned on this. You're taking off straight down the runway. There's anything wrong with the airplane right after you take off, just go ahead. Don't chop the throttle because it'll drop down. Just lower the throttle, try to land straight ahead, and figure out what's going on. So thank you for looking at the video, and we'll look forward to seeing you on future views of this channel.